Welcome to the podcast, Becoming an Elite Advisor. I'm Sten Morgan here with my good friend Andy Traub. And today we're going to talk about measuring things that matter. This is probably one of the changes in my business that elevated me to think like a business owner, to actually start making more informed decisions.
Right.
Every advisor needs to do this. This isn't a, hey, it feels good. If you get a chance, start a scorecard on a monthly basis and measure the results of your actions. You need to do this tomorrow.
This is the cost of not doing this is so high that if you don't do it, then failure will happen. It is, I don't want to look at my gas tank because I don't want to think about it. You can ignore that. You can ignore your gas gauge and you will eventually run out. So to your detriment as an advisor, if you don't do this, it will something eventually will go very wrong. Right.
Yeah, it helps with informing future decisions. But I do like what you just said there about it will open you up to certain things. Because once you have a scorecard and you know what reality is, you have to act. And I think this is true with blind spots in all of us. I think we believe if we can pretend like we don't know it exists, we don't have to do anything about it. A scorecard that you review on a monthly basis, if you start measuring things, it's going to tell you, hey, you're playing office because nothing's changing. And you may feel busy, but like this is, if you take your business seriously, and this is a commonality from elite advisors. We talk all the time about the difference between average and elite.
Yeah.
And I would argue most advisors that we talk to would say, of course I want to be elite. Okay, well, elite is harder. It's different. And one thing that elite advisors do, they act like business owners and they track and they review the results of the choices they're making.
So this was before I had kids, I know, because I had time to do things like this, but we used to watch The Biggest Loser.
Oh,
Did you ever watch The Biggest Loser?
A little bit. Didn't get too into it.
Okay, all right. Well, so I'll be the dork who watched The Biggest Loser. What was fascinating is they would all, obviously the way they measured The Biggest Loser was weight. It was weight. And it was fascinating, those moments when these people would step on the scale and you know that you saw them and they know they were working out all week and they were eating all week or you thought they were eating all week. And what would happen is sometimes they get on the scale and it would be like they gained 2 pounds. Or then they lost 1 and they would just be this like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And well, then they unveil what happened and they would go back and they'd say, and then they would admit, okay, I didn't, either they cheated on their food or they didn't eat the right food or whatever. And the point is, then they were able to get on track again.
Yeah.
But if they were just like, well, I'm doing all the right things, I think I'm eating right, I think I'm doing the right exercises, let's not get on the scale. The scale tells the truth and it informs you to change your behavior, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing I want to encourage you who are listening or watch this on YouTube is that I think, and you tell me, but I think the first time you step on the scale, if you will, the first time you start doing this, you may not like what you find, but now you know. Right now, you know, okay, or I think I'm doing a good job. And 3 months later, you're like, nothing's changing, but I'm so busy. And you're like, oh, wait, maybe I'm playing office.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll link to an example scorecard so you can kind of see what are metrics other advisors are tracking. But this will be an iteration. Your first scorecard, like you need to start tracking things tomorrow. And you may say, okay, what's my total assets under management? How many A, B, C clients do I have? All these metrics matter. Legacy, for example, our goal going into next year is we want to add a certain number of A clients.
Right.
If we are tracking and for some reason our C clients are growing 10x our A's, like we need to stop doing whatever we're doing. Most advisors, this is the industry that I grew up in, we would have annual strategy meetings. In December, we'd sit down, talk about a bunch of stuff. Hey, let's hope we hit this goal, and then just go back to just working. And hopefully by next December, we hit our goals. That didn't inform me if in July, hey, we got to pivot. Our goals are different now. We now do like rolling 90-day strategy meetings because we have to be able to pivot faster if we're doing something that's not working. What
is the 1 or 2 measurements that most people are using to track? Is there a feel, or is it just their bank account? Is it, what are advisors using? If they're not using a really specific scorecard that measures, how many meetings you had, and closing percentage, and AUM, and policies, and A, B, and C clients, what
would you guess it is?
I'll just be frank, like money in the bank.
Money in the bank, yeah. Hey, what's my production? How much money am I making? Yeah. That's right.
And not like scarcity as in like, not to like, oh, I have $5,000 left that I'm okay this month, but literally like, oh, I've got 150 in the bank, I'm fine. And like, oh, it's 80, I'm not doing so good. I better Like that, not that they live paycheck. I'm not saying that, but literally like it's the only. And also to say, oh, I've got a bunch, so I must be doing a really good job. That's not necessarily true either.
Before I say that's not true, it matters what type of practice and lifestyle you want to live.
Yeah, that's true.
Your goals are going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
I would argue 90% of the metrics we all track could be similar. For example, at Legacy, we track service requests completed per month. That informs me, does our relationship management team, can they handle the activity? If that gets to a certain number, do I need to look at adding somebody else so I don't overwork those people? Those are just healthy business owner metrics to have in mind. Revenue matters.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we want to drive good revenue. But I have met advisors that if revenue is their only goal, they're going to go sell a bunch of stuff, hit their revenue goal, and ruin their reputation in the meantime. So what practice do you want? Do you want AUM base? We track financial planning and consulting fees. That matters to us because we get a lot of AUM from those engagements. So if we have more financial planning consulting clients, that trickles down to AUM. Yeah. Probably get some decent size insurance cases out of those relationships also. Financial planning is a leading indicator for us on a lot of things. Revenue is almost a thing where at the end of the year, I'm like, okay, where did we get? But there's so many leading indicators and decisions to be made that are informing, hey, are we on track to hitting our revenue goal? Versus it saying, hey, I'm going to show up to work for 10 hours, hope it works out, and maybe get to whatever this goal was that I just made up.
We also know that it does matter, that you put in the hours. We also know that it matters what you're doing in those hours.
Yeah.
That the hours in the office, I mean, we know the old picture of the video of someone literally taking a time card. I remember I had to do this when I was, in my teens or whatever. And we had a time card at the pet shop I worked at. Shout out to the Reef Pet Shop. Nice. Still going strong in Indianapolis.
You got a big discount. He had like
independently owned and operated.
50 snakes in his house, I'm sure.
I had to clean the piranha cage, the tank. That was never fun.
Nice.
He's always like, they're more afraid of you. I'm like, no, I'm definitely more afraid of them. But I would have to get this card and like punch it. And it was literally like, okay, you punched in at 222 and you left at 542. And so you're worth, $15. We know that's not true.
That's right.
So we know that we can have there's certain things and activities we can have when we're in the office that are more effective than others. But I think that those numbers are going to tell you the truth.
That's right.
Those numbers are going to tell you the truth. And again, we'll have a scorecard linked to in the notes of this show, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, to a scorecard you can look at. So yeah, they measure their finances, but there's other areas that you can measure and should be measuring. You said rolling 90 days. How can you encourage our listeners to be on the scorecard for your business? What are other areas of your life that you try to shift there, and maybe go back to business as well, but like that you try to measure? Some feel like they're immeasurable, but
some may not be as practical as here's this 15 metrics I can gather every month really easily.
Score is 7.4. Right.
To that point, though, I don't know if any of our listeners, or if you've done this exercise of going and asking your kids, what is the most fun thing we do together?
Ooh.
And mine said wrestle. And so what should I do?
Take them down.
I should wrestle more.
Yeah, that's right.
Leg.
Sweep
off
the
the
leg.
top,
That's what you do.
Top rope. But I mean, we could just always guess.
Yeah.
And part of asking for feedback is potentially the fear of like, what do I do when I receive it?
The feedback.
The feedback. Because also some people, this is the Carol Dweck book about mindset, is there's growth or fixed mindsets. Fixed mindset people typically don't like feedback because they take it as you're calling into question who I am as a person. Whereas growth mindset people are saying, hey, the quicker I can get data and feedback, the sooner I can start doing better things and avoid regrets. And that is the mindset of elite advisors. I didn't start there. It took me time to develop that because I saw one of my biggest obstacles was just myself. But these things you can measure. I mean, with fitness, I've never gone as far to track my weight and diet. Maybe someday I'll have time to do that. But how many times are you working out per week? How many times are you doing date nights with your wife? All these things can be measured, planned around. From a business standpoint, a practical standpoint, if this is new to you, if your approach so far in life is I'm just going to wake up, work as hard as I can, and just hope everything falls in place.
Yeah.
An easy step into measuring is a business scorecard.
Yeah.
So start there. But if it's your health, whether it's your spirituality, your mental health, having a plan and checking in on that plan will always make the outcome better.
Here's a really practical way that you can make sure you're doing that. We've done this with our Elite Advisor Network community, is that we will, they'll have the scorecard and then they'll schedule a time on the schedule, has a time block, and then they'll put a link to their scorecard because theirs is it's a Google Sheet.
Yep.
So let's put a link in that event. They make a schedule appointment with themselves.
Yep.
Right, to review their scorecard. Now, their administrator, someone on the team, may fill out some of the scorecard for them, but they then have that time blocked off to, I'm going to review the scorecard during that time. And it's just a recurring event. That's how
right.
you're like, how do I make sure I do this? Put it on your calendar.
Yep.
Hit recurring. End, never.
That's right, exactly.
Right? Ending date, never.
Yep.
Right.
And in my practice, Jamie, the second Monday of each month, we review the scorecard from the prior month. And initially, it was overwhelming for her until she realized, wait, I can further delegate this task, meaning Brooke can track the new AUM that's received, and she can report that to me. Chris can report this part to me. And so you have to come up with your system to make it efficient. Maybe yours is a quarterly scorecard to start. Annually is helpful, but it's really, what are you going to do with that data? It does feel good to kind of know how everything played out. I would say the goal should be monthly. As a responsible business owner trying to make informed decisions, it should be monthly. It should include expenses, service metrics, new client metrics, all of those things. And in our EAN community, we dive into this a lot. We track this with our advisors, like, are the right metrics heading in the right direction?
And where it gets fun is when I have a conversation with, one of them, sort of a one-off coaching, and I say, well, and actually we did this because for our webinar that we did last month, we invited a few members of our community to come. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, tell me, Andy, what is the practical difference of being in EAN? Like, what's your planning? Like, what were your planning fees before and then after? And it's fun to go, oh, here's the difference. Here's the variable, right? Yep. What is your average planning fee? I'll have a conversation a lot with people. What is your average sort of case income when you do planning and don't have planning? I talked to an advisor this week, and the difference was like 7x. Yeah, it was more. It was like 7.5 times as much revenue if they did a plan with someone as if they didn't. That's good to know.
Good, really
they
good
were
to know.
like,
That's right.
thank you.
Yes.
Right? They didn't feel bad like I'm doing it wrong. They just went like, man, I'm moving forward. I'm going to do that.
That's right.
And that's what, if you have an
where do you pour gas? Which fire? If you got a few fires going, you need to know as quick as possible which one to stomp out and which one to pour more gas on. I have a recent example that we were working through with EAN. We look at legacy as kind of our laboratory for EAN. Sten is an active advisor. I have active advisors on that team. We're always trying to improve our practice, client service model, and so we get to pass that information along to you. We went back and I asked Jamie, I'm curious what our new AUM per client was for planning clients versus non-planning clients. And the information we were able to get back today, and she's still refining it, is that our average AUM per planning client. So this is a client that had no other business with us. They do a financial planning or consulting engagement. The average AUM added per those clients was about 2.2 million.
Okay.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say our average per non-planning client is probably under $1 million. That's really important. That's important for my team to know, advisors we coach, because if I can say more than double your average AUM pickup, do you think you're going to spend some time becoming a better financial planner? Are you going to learn to talk about yourself, that your value is in ideas and coaching as opposed to product? That's a pretty compelling argument.
All right, I'm going to be devil's advocate, but I've got a response for the devil. Okay, so the devil's advocate might say, well, those people just happen to be more high net worth. That's why it's more. That's the devil's advocate. Like, well, they just happen to have more money. Well, then who do you want to attract? Like, isn't that the whole point?
Right.
You do, like, well, they just happen to have more money. It's not the planning part. It's like, or is that kind of customer that wants planning the one you should be targeting?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Or that advisor you talked about the other day that's more insurance-based, his average case per client went from like $1,500
to $10,000.
from insurance to $10,000 with planning. And his feedback was, I'm more intentional. Meaning I uncover more.
Listen,
and I have better justification.
He took 100% responsibility. Sorry to interrupt, but he took 100% responsibility. And he said, the difference is, and he's a veteran, he just said, I am more intentional. I pay more attention to the details.
Yep.
When I stop and I don't go straight to the insurance and I step back and I go, let's do a plan.
Yep.
Put it like 7.5, 8 times the result. I mean, he was like,
Yeah, again,
I
you
gotta
can't
stop.
argue with it then. You may be like, I don't like it, or that's a new thing. It makes me uncomfortable, so I'm going to avoid it. At some point, it's so compelling that you're going to step into that discomfort.
8X? Yeah, I'll be uncomfortable for 8X.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me ask some other questions about when people are looking at, again, people are going to listen to this a lot of different times during the year, and we do encourage folks to measure that scorecard monthly and then have some quarterly check-ins on your goals. Mm-hmm. But when people take a look at their year, how much time do you think it should take to, and I have some really interesting practical things I want people to do when they're thinking about they're looking back and looking forward that I think will be really, really impactful, frankly. But what are some ways that they should be measuring, like time-wise? Like, do they need to take a half a day, a whole day, get out of the office? Like, what are ways you can measure your year, I guess, in a practical way?
We at Legacy, we break it up into 2 half-day sessions. And it's all kind of results based. Like, we're not there to sit and talk about stuff. Like, we're not trying to solve meetings in that solve problems in that meeting. We can follow up with like, what are the solutions? We're trying to uncover what went well, what do we need to do more of? Is there any feedback? What innovations do we need to add to the practice? Like, get in a room and really just focus and think about the future. When in that meeting, we do reflect on the past year for 30 minutes. Hey, that's awesome. Let's celebrate it. This year cookies were brought in. We're like, hey guys, good job. We didn't hang there very long because it's like, impact's important. Let's talk about the future. But the data also allowed us to celebrate in that moment.
Yeah. So I do think the point being, and when you said cookies, you didn't really give that full. You brought in crumble.
Oh,
like
dude,
that.
So good.
When you said like bring in cookies, that's like that could have been somebody like popped off a dozen chocolate chip at home. Not the same as
Wait, man.
$4
There's elite cookie game, and then there's average.
Yeah, there's
game.
average, and then there's elite. And elite is $4 a pop, but they're good.
Nice.
They're good. So shout out, not sponsored by Crumble, but open to that.
Send us swag. Yes,
I've never done that before, but I love it. Yeah. So you got my number, Crumble.
That's right.
So here's another one I want to offer on a personal level. So we'll go personal a little bit. One of the most impactful times I've ever had of doing planning, looking back and looking forward, and actually it's in your town. I went a little town next to Franklin, and I went out to, and somebody told me it's this cute little town. Go out there and walk around, and I literally was just kind of like wandering the streets. People are probably like, "What is this guy doing?" But it's kind of a touristy spot. So, but I was walking, and I was trying to take as many side roads as I could, just literally just trying to think through the last year and just kind of how do I feel and how I feel about next year, and to very introspective time. And this is like a couple hours. I wasn't there like 8 hours.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did, this is one of the most profound moments of my life, and I did not expect it is. I saw a graveyard, and I was like, I've been taught to not walk on top of a grave, like you walk where the distance of where, but there was enough room for me to take a walk around this graveyard. And it wasn't very big. It was maybe like 100 graves there. It wasn't like thousands or whatever. But you want to have some perspective. Take a walk in a graveyard.
That's heavy.
Don't drive by it. Don't park your car and look at it. Like, go stand and look and see all these people who don't have the opportunities that you have because their days are done and yours are not. And whether it was, oh yeah, people were here in 1852, and sort of, but also seeing the fresh ones and just going, you know what, they had, and seeing ones that had less years than you did.
Oh wow,
that was like, I'm 38 and they only had 35. Like, I have more life than they had.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? And again,
that's good.
That will impact your marriage. It'll impact your parenting. It'll impact your work in the community. Yep. It'll impact your business. Because you realize that we're not always here, and that time is a gift. But I would encourage you, and again, I know it might feel goofy.
A warning to all graveyard security guards out there: you're going to have an influx of trespassers soon.
Right. But I would submit this again. We want to be about action.
Yeah.
We want to give really practical things. As much as our scorecard download in the show notes, go there, get that. It's a Google sheet. You fill it in. It's great. Like, you probably know where a graveyard is. There's a graveyard in my neighborhood. It has like 15 graves in it.
Oh man,
this old
what's the South? You always have these little ones mixed in there.
But I'll tell you what, it's powerful because there's some infants from the late 1800s that are buried there, as well as people that were settlers. Like, every time I go by there, but like, stop, pause, go there, and it'll impact you.
Yeah,
it'll impact you.
That's good.
So What do you do as you think about next year to, measure things that matter? How do you keep yourself from being wildly unrealistic, but also optimistic, hopeful, think big? How do you find that sweet spot of, you know what, I want to be uncomfortable, but I want to also not go, let's go from a million to a bajillion.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
There is something to your first year. Most advisors could probably understand, here's how much revenue I made in the past few years. So it's somewhat informed, and you can definitely stretch yourself. What's great about our community is advisors ask advisors. I remember I met an advisor once, and he was like, I added 10 million of AUM this year. Like, it's a great year. It's like, oh, that's good. Like, I added 20. How is that possible? And then a guy's like, I added 40. We're like, oh, how is that possible? So I think to be informed, you need to be in community, you need to be plugged in, you need to be asking for feedback from other advisors. For legacy, we have decided that the primary measure to not overcomplicate things is our A clients added.
Okay.
And if that number is moving in the right direction, and for every 15 A clients we add, we're going to celebrate as a team.
Right.
What's great about that is that that's something every team member can be aware of. It's not, our earnings before owner's compensation metric. That's important for a business owner to sit in your office alone and talk about.
Right.
But what kind of graph is that on the wall for them? Right. And so for every 15 A clients we add, if we're adding the right A clients and we set the metrics around who qualifies and what does that look like, I know the trickle-down effect of that goal will positively impact our other goals. And as a firm, our goal is not AUM at all costs. It's AUM at a certain threshold or higher for this type of client. So if we add business owners that'll pay us a certain size consulting fee that most likely have some AUM, if we do enough of that, that's a win. And so it gives you clarity. It helps you track something to celebrate more. For us, that's how we've kind of boiled it down.
Yeah. I want to give a couple really practical ways that you can focus on when you look backwards, decide how should that inform what I do in the future? Because there's some options that I think sometimes people forget they have options with what they have been doing. Like, you don't have to keep doing it. One of them is if you didn't succeed in something, or if you really want to accelerate, you're really good at this, is ask, is this a who not how situation where now maybe you started it, but it's like, maybe we need to bring someone in to really pour some gasoline on this. Maybe this is, I've sort of raised it to a seedling, but if this thing really needs to grow and blossom, then maybe this is a who not how situation if I'm going to really reach that next level or the next goal.
Yeah, I think this time of year, if every advisor takes an inventory of where they're spending their time, and they should probably stop doing half of it, give 30% of it away to somebody else, and focus on their superpower, which is their 20%.
Right.
Just that activity alone now is going to help inform, hey, if this is truly important, but I shouldn't be doing it, it is a who not how problem.
Right.
I need to find somebody to help me with that.
Another is maybe you find like, hey, things are going well, like rinse and repeat, like steady the course. Don't mess with it. You're doing well. I think within legacy, looking at the, average planning revenue, like fee, I think it's pretty strong. And it's like, hey, like, could it be higher? Yeah, but maybe you don't want to double it. Let's make sure it doesn't go down.
Yeah. For legacy heading into next year, our clients are really happy. They're referring us people. We're happy with our fee average and our service model. Yeah. Now it's a year of just go get more clients.
Yeah.
Where we've spent years in the past about its process, its marketing, like all these things, but now we're able to say, Gitmo, they're good enough to move on.
Yeah.
Now the primary focus is to make sure more people know we exist.
Yeah. And there is something to be said too. Like, you think about if you're running a race, like at some point they're like, hey, find your rhythm, find your pace. No, go faster. No, like find your pace and stay there.
Yep.
Right. That's
you don't. Change is not always. It's an easy answer because it creates movement and activity.
I think there's a pressure, like more. Like, no, what if I just keep doing the same thing that's
working?
It will create more, but it's not. So number one is who, not how. Maybe that's the solution. Second is rinse and repeat. Just keep doing it. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. Another is tweak it. Maybe there is a small change you could make that could have a significant impact, but don't be afraid to make small changes. Another is double it. Like, we need to, like, this is going well. How do we double that next year? Like, our capacity is there. Maybe we need to double something.
Yep.
I don't know what that is, but could be. The other one is bury it. Like, just stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
there's probably a lot of that. the things that we're doing that truly are not getting us closer to our mission. And if we're honest, and this is where we have our strategic planning facilitated by an outside party, to have somebody else come and be like, why are you doing that? Because all of us may defend things we've been doing. Because by doing it, it's like, oh, it didn't work, or maybe that wasn't a good decision. But the faster we can kill it, the better. Because it just frees up more time and we can be more impactful.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, maybe this tells maybe something that you go like, we tried that and like we just stopped because we buried it. Like we tried it, wasn't right for us, and we're okay burying it. Is there ever?
Oh yeah, marketing was that for us big time, and we're going to do some future episodes on marketing do's and don'ts. Because I've paid firms $3,000 a month to come in and write some generic blog posts and increase the SEO of our website, but there was no results.
They also posted to your Twitter.
They did some Twitter posts for me. And I realized it wasn't their fault. They were doing what I kind of was asking them. In hindsight, a marketing firm should come in with a clear plan. They should tell you what to do, like they're the expert. But I realized if this isn't something we can do with so much intention, then it's not worth spending the money and kind of doing it 50%, because you don't get results from marketing doing something 50%. It might feel good, but true results are like a firm marketing plan with probably an ad spend with like that is, you need to go for it all in. So that's something we realized, that we took a pause from marketing. We were getting a bunch of referrals. It was working. But now we're back to a posture where next year we're building out a marketing plan because Legacy has more capacity and it needs to get business from somewhere other than Sten.
Right.
But that's now someone else's project to work on.
Yeah. So remember, there's a menu of things you can do. You don't have. It's not always more. More is not always the answer.
Nope.
That's not how humans are built. We don't have that capacity.
Yep.
So it's okay to not do everything more and more and more.
Yep. We'll close out the episode. Remind everybody, if you're listening to this as it releases, we have a few spots left for our How to Charge live event, which is going to be super impactful. It'll transform your business if you're ready for something that you want to shake up going into next year. This is in January 17th and 18th. You can go to stenmorgan.com/howtolive and go check it out. Ping us. There's a link in there if you want to talk to Andy. Get any questions.
I know there's single digits left as of now, seats. If it's full, then there'll be a wait list for the next one we do later in 2023. But would love to have you come be a part of that. stenmorgan.com/howtolive. Don't type in drive, so it'll be in a link in the show notes or on the YouTube. So thanks, everybody. Hey, thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check out the episode description so you can get a link to our company scorecard, a resource that Sten mentioned earlier in the episode. And also remember that there's many different areas of life that you should be measuring as you look back in your year. Finances, health, your social life, your career, spiritual, leisure, personal growth, your family, and your friends. You can do that by looking through your camera roll, your emails, and your calendar. And then make sure, because this can be a lonely business, to share your results with someone else that can help you celebrate what was good and learn from what was not so good. Hey, there's still time to register for our How to Charge live event at our headquarters. There's about 7 or 8 seats left, so you can go to stenmorgan.com/howtolive. That's stenmorgan.com/howtolive to get your seat or to register for our next event. On behalf of Sten and myself, thank you for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself and that life's too short to choose the average path. Choose the elite one. We appreciate you.